So in this video, I'm going to talk about triggers. I'm going to show you how to set them up and what they do, and the places in Simplero that you can create a trigger for. So let's get started. So triggers let you do certain actions when something happens. So something happens in Simplero, someone signs up to a list, they purchase a product, they fill out a worksheet, they complete a course lesson, etc. And then you can add a trigger that will fire and cause something else to happen when that action happens, and it'll happen automatically, right? So all you need to do is create the trigger. So to create a trigger, I'll show you an overview of what they look like. So you can create a trigger under marketing triggers. This is the first place. This is like the master list of all your triggers. They'll show up here. To add a trigger, you click Add Trigger in the right-hand corner, and you'll see the different list of trigger categories. So when you need to add a trigger for something, you first need to choose the object type. And this shows you all the different types of objects in Simplero that you can add a trigger for. So affiliate programs, like for example, when they register for a program, or you approve them, or they're rejected or retired. When an auto response is sent on a list or a product, when they complete a course lesson, when they view a course lesson, when they uncomplete a course lesson. A field. So this is, when the value of a field changes and you can choose which field it is. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty of how this all works. When they select a certain field option, when they sign up from a sign up form. So when they subscribe or when they submit a sign up form, when they click a link in an email, etc. So you can see all of these when they're on a list, when they purchase at a price, they purchase a product, when they join a membership site, or all these different features, when they submit a survey, they get a tag, a worksheet, when they complete a worksheet, when they attend an event or they register for an event, they approve, join an event, etc. When an event is scheduled on a scheduling link, when a pipeline entry is created, when they're at a certain pipeline stage, when a site redirect is clicked, or when a notice is viewed, or all these other ones, right? So there's a whole bunch of object types, and those are the different categories that you can add a trigger for. And then once you've chosen which one you want to add, like let's say you want it to be when they join a list, you would choose when this happens and choose what's supposed to happen. So their subscription is activated or deactivated, or etc., or they ask to be subscribed. And then you would choose the list that they're subscribing to. So when they're subscribed to the newsletter, do this, send an email, or add a tag, or give access to a membership page, or start an automation, right? There's so many different things that you can do with triggers, but you're basically choosing when this action happens, do this, and then you choose the automation that you're starting, etc. So that's the first thing. Conditions on triggers, you can say, okay, I only want this trigger to fire if the contact has the tag webinar 17. Or if the contact is subscribed to another list called 4-week crash course webinar, right? So you can give these triggers conditions, and so they'll only fire if the customer meets that condition when they do this action. So when a customer subscribes to the list, this trigger will only fire if they meet the condition on the trigger. And if you don't need any conditions, you just turn that off. Only fire once per contact, that's pretty straightforward. If someone tries to sign up more than once, it will only fire once. And you can disable a trigger if you don't want to delete it, but you want to keep it around and just not have it be firing. You just disable it here. So the different places that you can add a trigger are, I'll show you one by one. So we've got under our list. So if you go to contacts lists and you choose one of the lists you want to add a trigger for, you would go to the content tab, scroll down to triggers, and here we are. You can also do it. I'm just going to show you a high level overview of the main places, but you can also do it for a product. So sales products, choose the product, go to the content tab, and then scroll down to triggers. You can also add a trigger on an auto response. So let's say the product is added, right? Or the product is purchased. They purchased the product. And let's say you add the trigger to an auto response. So let's say the product had an auto response on it. Thanks for purchasing, for example. Add auto response. you could have the trigger be on this product as well, right here, or on this autoresponder. So they purchase, they get the auto response automatically after they buy, and then the trigger here would fire. There isn't really a reason to put it here versus putting it on the content tab. I would only add it to an auto response if you have multiple auto responses. Let's say you send out another auto response the next day, second email, and you want to have a trigger fire on this day, so a day later. You could do it after this email here. Scroll down and add the trigger. But if you just want to send one after they purchase, you could just do it in the content tab here and scroll down under triggers. You can also do when they click a link in a broadcast, when they get a tag. So under contacts, tags, this is going to be your list of tags here, and you can see there's a spot to add a trigger directly here from the tag spot. If they complete a worksheet, that's also on the worksheet, you can add a trigger. So if you go to the settings of the worksheet, scroll down, you'll see the trigger spot there. On the product, if you have a price added and you just want the trigger to fire on a specific price, so let's say you have multiple prices on the same product, but you only want the trigger to fire for this one price, you can click on the price, scroll down, and add the trigger right there. And then, same thing with course lessons. If you want to go to a specific lesson, find a lesson in a course, scroll down, and there you can add a trigger. And then also some form fields, so custom fields. If you have it's harder to show here, but if you have a custom field, you can add a trigger to that as well. So those are just spaces where you can find the trigger spot. The last thing to keep in mind is GDPR. If you're doing business in the EU, just keep in mind when you're using triggers, some actions, you want to make sure everything is in compliance with GDPR. So if you're automatically subscribing people to a list, but they never necessarily gave their consent, you just want to be mindful that you don't want to violate the GDPR law. And then also, this is not legal advice. If you have any questions, just consult a lawyer, but just to be mindful, just letting you know about GDPR when you're adding these triggers. Okay, so enjoy creating your triggers and have fun with it.